Hey there, everyone, and welcome into Better Advertising with Better Media. We are here for episode 2 of our DSP series. I'm your host, Justin Knuckles, and I'm sitting alongside my co-host for this series, Adam Malott. What's going on, Adam?
Hey, Justin. Pleasure to be recording another episode with you, man.
We're here early in the week bringing some DSP knowledge on everyone. So in last episode, we talked about what we were looking forward to talking about in today's episode. Things like awareness versus remarketing and how you optimize for buyer intent across the buyer journey. We also looked ahead to creative best practices for targeting different stages of the funnel. And then lastly, we mentioned that we wanted to dive into audiences, the first party capabilities and the custom abilities you have. Today, we actually wanted to touch on just audiences. It's really a foundational point for DSP. And I think once you understand that, you really see the value in every capability around DSP. So, Adam, let's kind of bring everyone into the audience capabilities that DSP has, what types of audiences we have, everything from first party to third party. Let's just start high level. What do we have available?
Sure. I'm going to keep this high level. We could definitely rabbit hole on the audience capabilities in DSP. And I think that's, ultimately what's attracting a lot of endemic and non-endemic brands to the platform, right? The fact that we have first party audiences provided directly from Amazon. So any of our behavioral, lifestyle, in markets, demographic based audiences, new to category audiences, etc., are all 1P audiences provided directly from the source, right? We also have third party audiences available that are supplied by other data providers, right? Directly in the DSP as well. And to your point, Justin, we also have custom audience capabilities. We can run custom audiences of those who have viewed a particular listing over a customized look back window. Same thing with purchasers, those who have landed on brand stores or brand store subpages, those who have engaged with competitor listings, all sorts of things. So really the capabilities are generally endless when it comes to audience creation. That's where I'll leave that.
Yeah, and we'll also get into a little bit more in this episode about audience inclusions and exclusions because, to Adam's point, as granular as you can be with audiences, it's even more powerful when you can stack those and say, I want to make sure I'm hitting this audience, but make sure you're not serving my ad to this other group of people. So we'll get into the exclusion inclusion capabilities here in just a bit. But as you were saying, it's not just about bringing in your own custom audiences and slicing the data how you want, but actually other data providers, port data into DSP for audience abilities. So we'll get into that in just a little bit, but providers like Experian, Oracle provide audience data for us to be able to target people that are in market or lifestyle for certain types of products. Or, I was looking at one just a couple minutes ago, people that live within a certain proximity of a Krispy Kreme. Like, you can be as granular as you want to be with these audience capabilities.
That's
So I think
dangerous.
we've teased audiences enough. Let's bring them into the first party capabilities that Amazon gives us in DSP, Adam. Let's talk on lifestyle down to demographics and everything in between, all the levers Amazon gives us.
Sure. So, pretty high level talking point there, right? And what any advertiser or really any brand owner would walk into if they were to dive into the audience section of DSP, they'd probably be a bit overwhelmed, right? Whoa, there's a lot going on here. A lot of different levers I can pull, a lot of different buttons I can press, right? So, I will stress the fact that, of course, advertisers and brands really need to hone in their targeting strategy and just generally explore what's going on within Amazon's provided audiences and the DSP to really grasp what's able to be used there on a brand to brand basis, right? But as far as just general differences, I'm going to start with just Amazon's 1P and lifestyle, right? So, there's going to be a lot of different options we have for lifestyle audiences. These are audiences that are more tailored around a specific, it could be a life event, right? Such as a marriage or somebody who just had a baby or bought a house or what have you, right? So a bit more top funnel, a bit more behavioral. So the capabilities there are pretty deep.
Yeah, to pick up where you left off, Adam, I'm showing my screen here for those that are watching us on YouTube or have the ability to watch us and what we're showing on our screens. But touching on those lifestyle and in-market audiences provided by Amazon. Now, what we're looking at here on our screen, if you can see, is basically the shopping market of all the audiences you can go through provided by DSP. So what we're seeing here in this column called data provider is Amazon provided first party data. So just like we talked about in our last episode on the podcast here, we were talking how Amazon first and foremost is a data company. They're second to that a marketplace. So they know buyer habits, trends, and they know where people make purchases before they lead on to the next purchase. So this is really cool to look at the lifestyle in market audiences, to Adam's point, and say people whose shopping activities indicate they're likely to purchase salt and salt substitutes, excuse me, or people who shopping activities indicate they're likely to purchase floor standing fountains. So you can get, as we've said many times before, very granular in this. But we also get the forecasted daily reach. So Amazon, having it be their first party data, tells us exactly how big this audience is and how much people you can actually reach per day. So this is really powerful here, looking across these. Obviously, not everything is going to be applicable to you, your brand, your targeting and audiences, but the point stands. There's definitely people to be targeting in here that you could bring into your aisle and educate them on, why they need your product and why it more than likely makes sense that they're going to purchase this in the future. So, Adam, I'll throw it back to you. Anything to add on the in-market lifestyle audiences and segments here?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head, Justin. And the only other thing I would add as far as in market is concerned is analyze this how specific the audience is that you're considering going after, right? I think in terms of a DSP strategy plan that we're putting together currently for a brand in the boating and outdoors category, right? And we're sifting through in market audiences there, and we're finding, there are high level audiences like those who are in market for hunting, fishing products, right? And there's also those who are in market for outboard boat motors. So obviously, one is much more specific than the other, and there may be some overlap between the two, right? It is the advertiser's job to ultimately figure that out and drill down in terms of targeting strategy. But definitely jump into those overlap reports in 1P audiences, depending on the specific audiences you're considering targeting.
Now, I think it's fair to say and kind of warn our listeners, Adam, that these audiences in market lifestyle audiences are a bit mid funnel, higher funnel. They're not the highest purchase intent. You can't serve one or two ads to these people and expect a great ROAS out of them, but they fuel the flywheel of getting people into your remarketing campaigns, getting people to search your brand name on ad or in ads and come up in PPC. So it's a segment that leads to future purchases
Definitely.
versus these other audiences, which we'll get into, like custom capabilities and so on. But before we get to custom, any other first party audiences, demographics, lookalikes? I think lookalike is one that we could probably dive into quite a bit.
Nothing I'd specifically like to hit on. I will mention that I'm a big fan of the new to category audiences directly in the DSP. And, I may be getting ahead of myself here a bit, but the fact that, we have purchaser exclusion capabilities combined with new to category first party audience targeting, right? You can only imagine how powerful that can be for getting your brand and your products in front of the right subset of customers who are, shopping within the category or maybe browsing within the category and haven't purchased from a specific brand. So pretty cool.
Absolutely. One other thing I wanted to point out, having brought up the lookalike audiences, is the value to both endemic and non-endemic sellers. So obviously, this makes a ton of sense if you're an Amazon seller and have your product listed on Amazon.com. But the lookalike audiences is again a data set provided directly from Amazon. But this is really helpful for people that are non-endemic brands, right? We can see lookalike audiences for people that are interested in Toyota Camry accessories, possibly. So if you're a seller who has products that are accessories for a Toyota Camry or a certain make and manufacturer, these could be great audiences for you. So I think the lookalike audiences is a great thing to layer into your upper mid funnel strategies, such as the in market and lifestyle audiences we've been talking about till now. But lookalike just gives you an incremental reach, right? These are people you're likely not already targeting in somewhere across your funnel that would be good to bring in and start educating them on for future purchases.
Great
So
call.
I think that maybe bleeds it dry on the first party audiences outside of course, demographic, but anything we're missing before we jump ahead.
No, I think we're good here. We hit lifestyle, life event, in market, behavioral, lookalike, demographic, specific instances of in market like new to category or browsing for X product or what have you. So again, like you had mentioned, Justin, those audiences become immensely more powerful as you layer them, and especially as you lay an exclusion, right? View, whether it be viewed through purchase exclusion, et cetera, for your own brand. But definitely a lot of power and granularity within those capabilities.
100%. So as we said, those are very much mid to upper funnel strategies. Not that you may not see some great ROAS out of one or two of those at some point in time, but I think the highest purchase intent is going to be those custom capabilities where you
Yeah.
can set a specific ASIN and say people that have looked at this listing in the last 15 days, if you want to be that specific, but excluding people who have purchased in the last 10 days, if you want it to be that specific. I think that's where you really get the high buyer intent power out of DSP. So let's talk on that. What custom capabilities do we have to set within that segment of audiences?
Sure. So we have product specific custom audience creation capabilities with directly within the DSP. And in a nutshell, what that means is that I can take an ASIN or a group of ASINs, right? Whether it be my own brand or a competitor brand or a combination of competitor brands. I can input those ASINs into the DSP and say, hey, I want an audience of those who have viewed these products over the last 7 days. Or I want an audience of those who have searched for these products over the last 30 days or purchased these products over the last 365 days. So I just see you pulled it up, Justin. Essentially, these segments we have in terms of capabilities at the product level are going to be product purchase, product views, similar product views, subscribe and save, and I believe there's one I'm missing. Is it product searches? Yes.
Yeah, so these are where you can get as granular as your audience size can be, right? We would love to set our remarketing campaigns to be those that looked at our listing in the last 1 day, but you have to have a certain audience size to make these capable to be targeted. So, but we've seen these be successful as people that have looked at our listings in the last 7 days, if not maybe even more short term than that, but doing some 7 day product views and talking to that exclusion inclusion point where you can exclude people who have already purchased your product. Or you can target people that are searching for your product but have not viewed your product yet. This is where the inclusion exclusion part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm a kind of a nerdy stats guy. I love to think of this like a Venn diagram, and I think that's a perfect way to visualize this. Is making sure that you're targeting certain people and excluding a certain subset of those to be as precise as you can. And
Right.
looking ahead, that's where creatives, you can really tailor your creatives to who you're targeting. But
Great.
let's not get too ahead of ourselves and let's stick on the custom capabilities. I know I got ahead of ourselves there on the product audiences we can build, but Adam, let's walk through some of these other custom audiences that we can build. People who engage with whole brands on Amazon, people who engage with a storefront on Amazon. We have a lot of capabilities here for custom audience building.
Sure. So, one subset that we're testing is those who have engaged with particular Amazon stores, excluding one full year of brand past purchasers, right? And that quite literally means, hey, anybody who has landed on our storefront who has not purchased in the last year, we're going to hit them again with a remarketing ad. And that's, Justin, to your point, where you can get incredibly specific in terms of your messaging and the creative. And I don't mean to pivot here, but I do believe it's important. We can just get very, very specific in terms of what audiences we are going after and the information that we're serving to them. Essentially, I would want to tailor my advertisement to those who have landed on a store page but never purchased from us a bit more differently than I would somebody who maybe purchased from us a year ago and needs a gentle reminder to purchase again, right? So there's different intent the way you manipulate DSP's audiences and exclusion capabilities, and you need to make sure that your creatives are in line with that sort of facet of DSP. And I will just mention that as a very important factor here before we jump into all of these audiences. But Justin, to your point, there is a massive amount of targeting capability here in the DSP. Our bread and butter generally is in the product audiences, brand audiences, and then I would say ads tag, purchase and event based audiences here and there. Essentially, what that means is you can place an ads tag on particular web pages and ultimately track activity, right? So we can do things like remarket to those who have landed on a web page, but maybe not landed on the thank you page or the purchase page, right? Justin, I'll pass it off to you here, man. This section is largely a monster, right? So
Yeah, there's a ton of capabilities in there that I don't think any DSP advertiser could say that they've mastered and maximized every part of the custom audience capabilities within Amazon DSP. So that's just us being honest. So to that point of the thank you page and what you were just referring to, are these the third party audiences that you're bringing into Amazon, or are these things that you have inherently within Amazon DSP?
so technically that would be third party.
Let's
Essentially,
go that way.
yeah. We have, it's a funny line, right? We have capabilities to take the tag directly out of the advertiser in DSP and place that on the header of a website. And then essentially what we're doing is remarketing to that specific traffic, right? So in that instance, I would classify that as 3P. But drum roll, we do have 3P audiences available directly in DSP2, or audiences that are not provided by Amazon, they're provided by additional data providers. Justin, I know you were referencing a ton of really cool examples, very, very specific to, brands and categories. So we'll kick that off to you.
Yeah, this is something we touched on a little bit earlier in this episode, but on the third party audiences, we obviously have mentioned that you can bring in via pixels and hashed audiences your own website data and owned an your own data. But what we also have within here is, again, data provided by not Amazon, by third parties like Experian, Polk, MasterCard, and they may or may not be relevant to you. Again, things like people in market for aftermarket auto parts, people in households that are likely auto parts buyers. That may be very, very relevant to a certain brand or seller out there. And again, that's not data provided by Amazon, but that's also not data that you had to bring into Amazon. This is data already provided by Polk directly here within the Amazon DSP. So I think that's, Adam, to your point, what is super valuable about these third party audiences outside of just Amazon's owned and operated, which is super powerful. But this is even more reason, if you're not an Amazon seller, to be within Amazon DSP.
Sure. I am running or planning a test right now, a streaming TV and online video test for a pretty large makeup CPG beauty brand that we work
Mm-hmm.
for, and or that we work with rather. And one of the large areas of focus, right, is going to be those 3P audience segments. What we're actively looking to achieve is to funnel new to brand customers directly into our brand, right, and get them sort of into that funnel in terms of customer activity and ultimately purchase. And we're leaning heavily into product audiences, product specific audiences such as views, purchase audiences, those who have landed on specific brands, stores, and perhaps haven't purchased, etc. And we're also climbing up the funnel and really hammering those 1P audiences in terms of interest, right? Those who are interested in makeup and beauty, those demographic specific audiences, right? Obviously, makeup is uh, and beauty is more to a female audience, of course, younger, et cetera, et cetera. So we're using AMC for a lot of those insights. But something that we're leaning into heavily is also 3P, right? As we sort of explore DSP's capabilities and learn what works and what doesn't, what's worth testing, what's worth not. Um, we find that there is a ton of granularity in those 3P audiences. As an example, one of the audiences that we're targeting are frequent high spenders at Ulta, right? And essentially what we can do is target that audience. Okay, hey, if you're classified by this data provider as a high spender at Ulta, we would want to go after you as long as you haven't purchased from our brand, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
where the exclusion capabilities come into play. So I do think 3P audiences in the DSP aren't talked about enough. Now, keep in mind, the beauty of DSP is that Amazon does provide 1P. So it's extremely powerful to utilize those audiences, but just for additional levers to pull within the platform on a brand to brand basis, I would definitely explore the 3P subsets.
Absolutely. And one thing that you made mention of that we should definitely remind everybody listening is this gets really powerful when you do have AMC, when you can see which audiences are performing better, which audiences are leading to future purchases from different audiences. It really helps piece together the customer journey for you and visualize where you need to be spending to lead to more profitable sales wherever the audience is, whichever segment strategy that is for you. Make sure that you're feeding those. So AMC is something I'm sure we're going to dive into in this series at some point, but as you're strategizing which audiences to make up your strategies with, AMC is likely going to be a very good source of truth for you in this.
100%. 100%. I won't dive into that subject too much because I think that we could spend another hour
Oh yeah.
speaking on AMC and just the capabilities and how we layer in AMC insights with our PPC and DSP strategies. Justin, one question I did have for you, we've talked about a lot of different audience capabilities, right? And
Yeah.
um, a lot of targeting strategies, at the product level, brand level, etc. Are there any low hanging fruit audiences or subsets of audiences, right? Like a view through and exclusion that we generally test across brands as sort of a blanket test? Is there anything that you recommend for brands to get
Yeah.
started in terms of targeting strategy?
Yeah. I mean, I'll give two, maybe three answers here. For those that are wanting to get started with DSP and they're just wanting to test this out and say, does it even make sense to expand on this to build a full funnel strategy? The easiest, lowest hanging fruit is typically if you're an Amazon seller, is your product views excluding your purchasers. It's the most tried and true form of remarketing. Those typically work. Now, if you have a repeatable purchase item, think something you can subscribe to, then maybe you do want to include those prior product purchasers, someone that bought maybe 45 days ago but hasn't purchased in the last month, catching this like 15-day window of they should have refilled by now but they haven't. So that's a really low hanging fruit if you're a subscribe and save type audience or business. Now, for those that are looking to really grow their reach, we work with some advertisers that they're already doing inline advertising. They're already running TV ads on some of the biggest channels on TV. So what are they looking for? What's the value in Amazon DSP for them? It's the incremental reach. It's those everything we've been talking about till now, the in markets, the lifestyles, the behaviorals, right? Like Amazon knows more than likely what our next purchase is going to be before any one of us knows what our purchase is going to be. So let's trust that data and let's serve ads to those that are likely going to buy our brand, our product in the future, or competitors, and try to steal that customer from the competitor. So I'll say those are the two lowest hanging fruits, depending on what your goal is, right? Are you trying to grow scale, brand name, awareness, so to speak, or are you looking to really maximize your sales and your efforts on PPC?
Sure.
Remarketing on one hand and tapping into that first party audience data for in market and lifestyle, I think is the second big value. So
Sure. Those are great call outs. And one aspect of DSP I do want to mention, right? Justin, with your details into those targeting strategies, right? We can very clearly see how DSP would PPC in the long term, right? Or at least your full funnel strategy in terms of awareness down to loyalty. Now, we need to get very specific in terms of DSP intent and what we expect from the platform before we go and test, right? As a perfect example, we see a lot of brands who maybe aren't specifically educated on DSP's capabilities and how it functions, right? And what they expect is to come in here and test these 1P audiences and see massive sales increases, within 30, 60, 90 days, right? And that's not the case. The case is essentially DSP is acting as, I like to refer to it as sort of like a little brother, although I think at some point it will become the big brother of search. It's a complementary platform, right? It's working to take all of the things that you're doing organically and in search, right, and hit those specific audiences again. So, we need to be realistic with the return that we get per different parts of the marketing funnel and ultimately customer journey. As you had said, Justin, I wouldn't expect, a first party in market segment to drive a $10 ROAS for a CPG company. And on the other side, right, I wouldn't expect a remarketing audience to drive 90% new to brand customers. So I think there's a lot of education when it comes to DSP and ultimately learning on how to test the platform and what to expect when pairing DSP with PPC ultimately.
yeah, I agree. And that's what we're here to do in all future episodes is continue that education on DSP. So stick around, continue listening to this series. I loved your analogy. The way I think of DSP is really like fanning a flame, right? Like you have to have a good fire. You have to have a good flame going before fanning it's going to spread the fire, get it hotter. So if you have a bad product, if you have a bad brand, it's DSP is only going to exaggerate those problems. We need to get the foundational e-commerce criteria hit first before we can really
Sure.
unlock DSP. So wanted to reiterate that to your point, Adam. Well, I think that covers it today for, the intros into audiences and why audiences are so dang powerful in Amazon DSP. But before we cut it here, Adam, anything to add?
No, if you're curious to test DSP, or would like to kind of see how we do things here at Better Media, feel free to reach out directly to myself or Justin. This is one of our favorite subjects to divulge into and sort through with brands and advertisers alike. So, any questions, any recommendations, any feedback, we are all ears.
Absolutely. And be sure to share this episode with any of your friends in the space that you know are running DSP or interested in DSP. Let's all learn together and work on improving our brands up the funnel. So catch us next time on episode 3, and we'll talk a little bit more on those custom creatives like Adam was talking about here, how to tailor your messaging to different segments of the funnel, these different audiences we've been talking about here. So making sure that your creatives and your messaging is actually moving someone along the journey, is actually educating them to purchase your product. So we'll talk about that next time in our episode. But till then, cheers and enjoy the rest of your week.